Back, Korkronowski, publisher of Yankee T News, on this Monday, December 15th, the year of our Lord 2025, from the world-famous Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut. A little noisy in the corner there, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so let me just remind you, Yankee T News, subscribe. We keep getting a little bit at a time. Keep bringing it on. Our next goal, let's call our next goal 2,000. Okay, we just broke 1,000. Now we're aiming for 2,000. All right, meantime, tell Tong time. We pray for the day. Mr. Tong, we pray for the day. And it's for Tina Peters. Bring the hammer. I mean it. Steve Bannon put it very well today, and thank you, Steve. Thank you for putting in as much energy and force and thought and time as you did for Tina Peters today, because God knows she needed it. And at one moment you said, bring the hammer. And I agree, bring the hammer. Let me just throw in a thought, since I've just moved to this. All right, Governor Polis may not like this. In fact, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. Governor Polis, some things take a little bit longer than others, and you put your foot in this one should become apparent in a reasonable period of time. Okay, I am so thankful to President Trump for issuing the pardon for Tina Peters, but of course you and your evil blood-sucking minions can't stop laughing. Go ahead, let's see who gets the last laugh. And in the meantime, because of this pardon, we have learned that Tina Peters was moved to another cell, given a 4-inch mattress instead of a 2-inch mattress, and 4, count them, 4 Colorado security guards who track her everywhere she goes. The only reason she has these 4 is because of the pardon. Because there's a part of Governor Polis that might be a little concerned. Okay, let me point something out to you, Governor Polis. I want to suggest for the moment you might be outclassed on this, okay? There is now active discussion, half joking, half serious, among a number of people who are ex-SEALs, okay? There's one thing you need to remember about ex-SEALs and anybody else who served in the military, Governor Polis. When you take an oath to defend the Constitution, you are taking an oath that says, I am putting my life on the line. So think about being confronted by people who will rescue Tina Peters, who are not afraid to die in doing it. You might want to think about it. It's just a thought for the day. Okay, meantime, our theme is Ned Lamont's Shittification of Connecticut. Okay, I mentioned it last week. We're going to be talking about it a lot. It is now known as Public Act 25-1, signed just after Election Day by good old Governor Lamont, the turd himself. And it's the affordability housing scam. All right? Now, to this end, I want to refer to an article that was just published today in the Connecticut Sentinel by Rob Sampson, who's the conservative champion and fighter in the Connecticut legislature. And he has made the point time and again that because these people have such a strong majority, they feel that they can ignore Republicans, ignore other voters. They don't have to follow procedures. They can violate every rule and standard there is inside the 4 walls of the legislature, get away with it, and they can have a good old time doing it. And the way they handled this was just one of those. To run it under emergency session when there was no emergency was just one example. Anyway, there's going to be work to be done on this. I just want to add, and also, I think I mentioned Betsy McCoy. She's the former lieutenant governor of New York under Putative. And she's all in on this. She's going to work with CT 169 Strong. We're going to work with them. And hopefully a group will emerge that's going to really set the tone here for how we're going to repeal Public Act 25-1. So some of the things to consider. The bill involves what you would call vagrancy support, enabling vagrants to be vagrants even though towns have vagrancy laws. Let's see how that works out. There's something called as of right construction. Now it gets to violate local control. Local character decisions about architecture no longer apply. Parking will be beyond chaotic. You have single residence neighborhoods, maybe some parking on the street, and now you're going to put a 6, 7, 8-story building in the middle of a single residency neighborhood? Yeah, okay. Massive increase in state bureaucracy over construction decisions. That's the thing that people aren't talking about. As you start to go through the language in the bill, it is so obvious that this is a bureaucratic monster, all right? That's your Democrats who passed it, and they couldn't be more happy with the language that's been put into this bill so that they can control every step and make things be the way they want. Which, of course, also means there'll be a massive increase in corruption. So how are you going to handle that? Good question. I don't know. But all of this bids ill for Connecticut. And ladies and gentlemen, this op-ed is not a call to action. It's a call to war. All right? We have to get people to step up and start the process of putting pressure on the legislators who pass this, putting pressure on Ned Lamont, and doing everything that there can be done to either repeal the bill or to get the people who voted this in voted out. So there you go. All right, moving on to the next thing. Oh God, all right. I admit, last week I got a little criticism because I was maybe a little bit too obsessed with what was going on with Ukraine and Russia. So I'm limiting my comments for now, and I'm going to limit it to one in support of the argument that NATO is slowly getting its act together. So one of the things that NATO just recently agreed to is called the EFDL. It means the Eastern Front Defense Line. And basically it's a 3-layered plan of defense where they have like tank traps and obstacles and other things like that. And then they have a second layer of defenses, including robotic weapons to fight any Russian incursion. And then the third layer, of course, is actual meeting of manned tanks and other vehicles if they were to get past the first 2 layers of defense. All right, this is an ambitious project, okay, because this when they get it done, it's going to be about 1,000 miles long, starting up around, Lithuania, and then coming down through the bottom of Poland, I guess, or maybe by the border of Ukraine. Not clear, but it's going to be a big one, and they're going to do it. So there's reason to believe that NATO is getting its act together, and that's a good thing. In spite of, and not in spite of, I mean, the nature of the comments that the people are making are, what I want to say, they're not thinking through what is happening in the circles of control and power involving these things, okay? They just have a reaction. It's kind of, I don't know, you're living in the past. A lot of people, that's it. A lot of people who are complaining about how America is relating to NATO are living in the past. It's time for a change that's been made very clear. It's been spelled out in our new national security strategy. So to the other people who haven't quite caught up, catch up, okay? Meantime, now I'm going to move on to, oh God, Eric, I'm going to need help with this. All right, we need to talk about the Charlie Kirk situation. It is your proverbial hot mess. Wouldn't you agree, Eric? Yeah, a hot mess. So there are 2 broad pieces of information to think about as we consider this hot mess. The first is what I will call the ignored evidence. And there's quite a bit of ignored evidence, and unfortunately some of that ignored evidence is also unresolved evidence, but it's unresolved because you have Kash Patel and the others having adopted a simple narrative based upon what was learned the first day or 2 and pretty much ignoring everything else. You can only do that for so long, Kash, because there are a lot of people out there. I've talked about them before. We have this cottage industry of about 6 investigators who are constantly testing ideas and collecting more data. Look, if you have George Webb on the case, and we do, okay, eventually the truth will be found out. Long before, all right, our vice president of conspiracy theories has arrived, Bob, okay. Right, so just talking about the major conspiracy theory here, Charlie Kirk's assassination. So we have that body. Now over here, now you have all this fog, okay? I don't know how to describe it. It's Candace Owens with her half dozen different explanations, right? It's these other people who are complaining about what's being said. It's people who are attacking Erica Kirk. What are you people talking about? And while they're going around with all this crazy stuff, some of which may have some fact behind it, and I'll get to one, is that just so much there is no referee here. We don't have a referee. We don't have someone who can blow the whistle all this stuff and tell everybody to line up and do it right. We don't have it, okay? So let me give you one example. Also a shout out to Jimmy Dore, because I think he's doing a good job on this. So what's the latest? He had some people on, was that video you sent me with Jimmy Dore? Probably. Yeah. Okay, so I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's a finance analyst, and he has been tracking the finances related to these 4 organizations that would have constituted late Charlie Kirk's, quote, empire. You had money that was flowing directly into Turning Point USA, but then they had what they referred to as a shell company adjacent to it. And what you had was a chief operating officer, a COO, Tyler Brunter, I don't think I have his name right, who was in charge of it. And the thing is that Charlie apparently took a hands-off approach to how this guy managed this standalone organization. Wish I could remember the name, but here was the problem. He puts up the numbers. He brings the receipts, okay? With respect to Turning Point USA, they were getting donations that were kind of, if you go 22, 23, 24, 25, it was kind of flat, just right about there. But now, if you move to this holding company or shell company that this other guy was running, all of a sudden, it goes from, let's say 24 being about $10 million to 25 being $27 million. Well, that's a big jump. Where did that come from? All right, we're waiting for an answer. All right, so I consider that a data point that should be looked at. Right. In the meantime, you had Candace Owens carrying on about these rumors over huge donations that were supposed to be directed to Turning Point USA shortly before Charlie was assassinated. And that's a whole other discussion, okay? And it just becomes part of the confusion. Such that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, this is the only way to characterize this. Let's see if I can find an example. Yes, here we go. All right, now before I show this, I also want to mention, I hope you remember the story of the 3 blind mice. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we've discovered there is a 4th blind mouse. His name is Jonathan Turley, and he's the guy who said that the evidence against Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin is the strongest I've ever seen in a case. Really. Really. Talk about willful neglect. Talk about willful ignorance, Jonathan Turley, you the 4th blind mouse. This is unbelievable. But there he is saying it. Okay, you know, this becomes reminiscent of these people after the JFK assassination who kept carrying on about how, you know, Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman. Okay, and when you analyze the situation under which it happened, it's wildly improbable, yet they still insist. Okay, so here we got a guy wildly insisting while you have information that's just not fitting together properly. So what happens when information doesn't fit together? What happens when you have a lot of different people, a lot of different opinions? What happens when nobody seems to be able to resolve anything with anybody, and you're still arguing about the same situation? You get this right here. Can anybody name that? Anybody name that?
Rorschach.
Thank you. You win the prize. Yes, it's a Rorschach blot. It's one of those things used in psychology that was supposed to reveal some inner information about the way that I'm organized psychologically. Because if I look at it, I see 2 boots and 2 floppy ears. I don't know. What do you see?
Yes. It's
2
like
boots and 2.
somebody on a motorcycle.
Oh, and
like
you,
a
okay,
Harley.
all right, there you go. Is that somebody on a motorcycle? Is that,
Sure.
oh, there you go, okay? And we're all correct, right? Okay? That's the status of the Charlie Kirk assassination investigation. Right here, right here. Take your pick. Just saying, all right?
It's supposed to be who did the shooting?
Yeah, which one? Which one in the picture did it? Can you find him? Yeah, no, because I try to take in as much of this information as I can. I try to square it. I try to make sure that it's making sense to my limited brain. You see, Winnie the Pooh and I have something in common. We were both bears with small brain. Just saying. All right, so we got that out of the way, so let's move on. All right, the title I put up for Venezuela is this. Venezuela will be the first war ever fought over election fraud. Well, if you stop and consider it, well, I guess that's obvious after all. I mean, really, the prime driver, or what should be the prime driver, is the fact that Maduro stole the election, all right? But this is the part where this is the part that ain't going away, okay? It ain't going away. Sorry. So what did I get here? An article from a guy named Aram Rostam in Washington. So he was, you know, kudos to you in your writing because you're playing both sides of the fence. But it was clear that you were kind of leaning on the side of, you know what? The 2020 election was stolen, and yep, Venezuela had something to do with it. Now, of course, one of the big things is the lawsuit that was brought against Fox News and Newsmax and some others. And yeah, they folded like cheap cameras because of the amount of money that was involved. People always wondered though, because Fox News didn't really have to fold, and that's another discussion, okay? In spite of this, all right, and even though people said, look, see, the whole thing was fraudulent. No, it's not done, and it was not fraudulent. So I don't know, I've just got to throw these names out here and then move on to you. There's a Stephen Muldrow, who's the district attorney for Puerto Rico. There is, where did they go? Where did they go? Come on, I just saw you guys. Bummer. Muldrow. I got to find him. I'm not going to be, here we go. Martin Rodil and Gary Berntson. All right, so these 3 people are the point people in terms of collecting information and preparing a prosecution based upon the allegation that Smartmatic has worked with Maduro and Chavez over the years to run fraudulent elections, starting with Venezuela. Okay, so now the allegation is that it's Venezuela, America, and hold on to your hat, 71 other countries that use Smartmatic technology. Now, it should be noted that as the heat exploded, for Smartmatic, they've tried to say, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. No, we're not involved. No, we're not doing that. Well, we'll find out if that's true or not. The problem being that there is, all right, in my judgment, from the things I've seen, the things I've read, you've got Peter Berninger, you've got you've got Captain Keschel. These are guys who do nothing but study election fraud and collect every bit of data they can. The unfortunate fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, if you start getting into machines used to create election fraud, it becomes very complicated very quickly. It is stuff that will blow your mind. It's stuff that makes you go, how did we get to this place? Okay, but we're going to have to stick with it. We're going to have to see it through because something is clearly wrong. So, and the way I like to characterize Venezuela, then I'm going to move on, is what you have this vast expanding circle, okay, of connections and events with Venezuela in the center. But there's a little dot right in the middle of Venezuela that connects to all this other stuff. And that is, and the name of that dot is Smartmatic. So stay tuned. Okay, moving on to the next lovely disaster. Okay, we all started with the news that the Somali there was a bunch of Somali immigrants or illegals in Minneapolis who were responsible for running Medicare fraud to the tune of about $1 billion. And some people were whispering, boy, it could be as high as $8 billion. All right, so, and then we find out that Tim Walz knew about this, but he's going to play stupid. Well, he doesn't have to play stupid. He is stupid. He's going to use his stupidity to avoid prosecution. I'm waiting for him to plead temporary insanity. That'll be a good one. Problem is, it's plausible. Then, so while we're absorbing this information about this fraud that has been going on in Minnesota, we find out that there's a Somali community in Ohio that's doing the same thing, okay? So how far does this go? There's a huge Somali community in Maine. What about them? Okay, these guys talk to each other. We want to know. But at the end of the day, there's only one answer. They got to be shipped out. They either go to jail or they get shipped out. And I don't think any of them should be given any consideration. Out, out, out. Moving on. All right. As Steve Bannon noted, this has been a week of violence. It's unfortunate, you know. So we had what happened at Brown University, where those 2 people got killed, and the other 9 who were wounded, I guess many seriously. Then you have what happened at Bondi Beach, as they say. I say Bondi Beach in Australia. And we've been having discussions back and forth about that. The big problem, of course, being that the police, it was 20 minutes? Something like that? They didn't do anything. How can you stand there 20 minutes with shooting going on all around you, and you as a police officer don't do anything? That's ridiculous. That's pathetic. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should resign, quite frankly. So anyway, this unfortunate event has triggered a discussion that's going on for some time now, which is you have people who have these beliefs, starting with convert or die, which are fundamentally incompatible with our cultural values, including those in Australia. So the take-home message is Muslims and everybody else just can't seem to live together. Sorry, you're going to have to go. All right. So there's a lot more to come out of this, and I don't know, it's a horrible event, but we keep the calling off of the event in Paris, the Christmas market cancellations in Germany, okay? The 5 Muslims who were caught who are about to commit another terrorist act, all right? I mean, you're left with the impression that the Muslim community, the Muslim world community, is becoming more violent and attacking those who are not Muslim with greater frequency. It's going to have to be resolved, and I think there's only one way to resolve it. I don't think you have to think too hard to figure it out. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so next, let's go on to, all right, so this is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. This is amazing. Actually, the 2 here, hold on. There are, okay. What we have here, I was very surprised when I came across this, but it's a further reflection of how the nation of Britain is in serious decline. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Polish emigres who went to Britain for a better life, who are seeing everything fall apart around them, and they're going back home. They're going back home to Poland. Hundreds of thousands. The number is 700,000 Polish people living in Britain. And at least a third, maybe half already are going back, and more will probably go later. It's a serious commentary. But here's the other part of the story. It starts with a comment that was blurted out. You know the comment I'm talking about. No, that would have been Walenska. Walenska. I will get his name. Solidarity leader Lech Walesa. Lech Walesa. Sorry, and I'm Polish. Don't you love it? Okay, so Lech Walesa, in an interview back in the 90s, I think, no, the 80s, defending what was happening with their revolution, with their movement, had said, someday Poland will be the Japan of Western Europe. People thought he was out of his mind back then. He doubled down on his comment in the 90s. Today, the per capita income of people in Poland is greater than that of people in Japan. Wow. How do you like them apples? Okay? That Poland is turning into an economic powerhouse for Europe that can begin to rival Germany. Who would have even thought it possible? And so the part that becomes very curious is this very strong bridge that was built between England or Britain and the Polish. And this is just, it seems like this is just the beginning of the story. So anyway, the link is there. You should go read the rest of it. It makes it very clear that Europe is undergoing some very significant changes, all right? Okay, next, I just got two. Don't go away. And remember to subscribe. All right. My father, who was a chemical engineer many years ago, told me about an idea that was being tossed around to let solar arrays fly around the Earth, generate electricity, and transmit the electricity to the ground. Okay? Sounds like a good idea. There's just one problem. The method of transmission of the power was microwave radiation. Pity the bird that happens to fly through that beam that's sending all that power from a low Earth orbit down to a station on the ground. Pity the poor bird that gets fried in the middle of that. Okay, that was for sending energy. Well, how about if you send information? Well, here you go. NVIDIA, still got your NVIDIA stock? Yeah, hold on to it. Hold on to it. Yeah. Even though some stock analysts have been talking it down these last few days, the NVIDIA has a startup called, see if I can find it. Oh, what was the name of it? Darn it. StarCloud. Yes, so StarCloud is a proposed startup, and what it would do is they would build AI data centers in low Earth orbit, okay? The point being that we're running into constraints on the ground in terms of building out these data centers. So let's build them in outer space instead. So you can now, the thing I think that might make some people a little nervous is you're talking, I mean, you're going to use as much solar energy as you can to run them, but you might want to enhance it with, I don't know, nuclear power. Okay, so this is being discussed. It's pretty wild, folks. So if this comes to pass, it'll be quite extraordinary. So as the title says, orbital data centers would bypass Earth-based constraints. All right, so one more time. One last time here on Tina Peters. So many scams have been run. I just told you about Venezuela, okay, and how the Smartmatic machines that were made in Venezuela may have had a lot to do with the fraud in other parts of the world, in other countries, including America. What I find interesting is that the pressure on Venezuela is rising about the same time the pressure is rising on Tina Peters' release. Let's see if something comes together on those two, because God knows I sure hope so. And on that happy note, I'll see you next week.
Can you explain